Welcome back to the How to Think Like Jeff Bezos series, where I take successful people, thinkers, inventors, scientists, and I pick apart ways of thinking based on quotes and interviews and try to get insights that you and I can use on a daily basis to level up our lives. Jeff Bezos is the billionaire founder of Amazon, as well as the owner of Blue Origin, a space company. He's been able to do something that a lot have not been able to do. He's been able to start one of the dot-com companies, one of the original ones, and he's actually been able to make it successful. At one point, the most valuable company in the world. How has he been able to do this? Because he thinks differently. Funny enough, Apple, whose slogan, Think Different, is also in the contention for richest company in the world. Right now, I believe they currently are. Sometimes Amazon is top, sometimes Apple, etc. And I actually think Amazon has better long-term prospects as becoming the richest company in the world than Apple. Apple's going to be a top company for as long as they're around and doing what they're doing, but I don't think they have the staying power that Amazon does and the growth opportunity that Amazon does. So in this video, we're going to have 3 big ideas from Jeff Bezos. It's going to start with a quote, verbatim, that he said from an interview and or in the letters to shareholders, which are made public. Then we're going to dissect that and get ideas that we can use today. So the first one is, if you double the number of experiments you do per year, you're going to double your inventiveness. There's also something here to be said about failure, because if you double your experiment, you're also going to be doubling your failure. But that's good. That's why they tell you to fail fast, fail often. The goal isn't to try to fail, obviously. The goal is to be able to do things that are probably going to fail, at least sometimes, and then the things that don't fail are the things you double down on. And that's how you act like a scientist in your life and for things you're trying to accomplish. You increase the amount of experiments you take. So whether that is trying new things, whether that is saying yes to things that you otherwise might have been afraid of, whether that is just trying things that are outside your comfort zone, the more you do these things, the more insights you're going to get, the more results you're going to get, and also the more confidence you're going to get, which is what people don't really talk about when they talk about failing. The more you get in the mindset of being able to do things and fail at them and then bounce right back up and do it again or do something else, the better you're going to be in nearly every way. So this is one of those foundational principles of success. The most successful people on the planet have been rejected and failed more than other people. Nobody wakes up a genius and then has this idea and then goes to work and then it's just a perfectly smooth linear path up. Everybody has dealt with major setbacks and in a lot of cases lost lots of money and lots of time along the way. Second principle that makes Jeff Bezos a unique thinker that separates him from most other CEOs is he embraces change. What we need to do is always lean into the future when the world changes around you and when it changes against you. What used to be a tailwind is now a headwind. You have to lean into that and figure out what to do because complaining isn't a strategy. So what he's talking about here is when things change, even when they're changing against you, you have to figure out how you can lean into that and turn so that instead of this wind holding you back because blowing in your face, you turn around and move in the same direction the wind is going. And then that becomes a tailwind instead of a headwind. So a tailwind would be at your tail. It's going to help move you along versus a headwind, which is going to be coming at the front, at the head, which is going to be holding you back. This is a good analogy for change when things don't go your way. You have to ask yourself questions about how can you flip this on its head? How can you use this as fuel? Or maybe how can you take this as a sign that you need to quit what you were doing before and hop on board? Sometimes you got to kill the things that you were doing. You got to kill your sacred cows so that you can take advantage of new opportunities. And this very much aligns with the first principle of experimenting and doubling down on trying new things and being willing to fail along the way. The more you put out these experiments, the more likely you're going to catch a tailwind. And there will be times where some of these experiments have wind in your face. And sometimes you're going to need to plow through them. And other times you're going to want to either rebuild your plane or rethink your strategy, maybe take a different route because the tailwind is over here and your current strategy is just resulting in force fighting against you. What we see in success in life and almost a law of nature, when we try to resist forces, we're always going to fall short. Whereas when we accept things and we pivot and we adjust and we're constantly learning and adapting, that's the path forward to success. And what people do is they get stuck to their ideas. They get married into their investments they've made this far, known as the sunk cost fallacy. They don't want to change. They don't want to adapt. They think it's unfair. They're blaming. They're complaining. All of that does nothing but keep you where you are and potentially takes you backward. What you want to do is you want to be fluid and dynamic. You want to flow with the energy, flow with the current rather than trying to fight it. This last big idea relates to planning for the future and your ultimate demise. We're all going to die. That just is what it is. When we ignore this, though, we fall into comfort. We more likely blame and play the victim and do things that are just not in our best interest. Yet if we analyze life and the limited amount of time we have, we'll be inspired and motivated to take advantage of that. And we'll let go of these petty fears that are holding us back. Here's a quote from Bezos. Amazon is not too big to fail. If we start to focus on ourselves instead of focusing on our customers, that will be the beginning of the end. We have to try and delay that day for as long as possible. It's funny here. He's almost saying that it's certain. He's almost saying that Amazon is eventually going to focus on itself too much. It's going to get too big, and then that's going to be the beginning of the end for Amazon. And so his entire goal is to simply delay that day. Now, this isn't a perfect analogy for life because it's more of a business and more of an organization type thing, but you can definitely think about this as a trap that we can fall into. Like the second you start playing the victim, or the second you start being rigid in your ideas, or the second you kill your inner child and play and start thinking dogmatically, etc., is the second that you start the decline. And if you look at the human life, nobody stays on top of anything forever. There's always a decline. And so if we think about it this way, how can we stay at the top of our game and open mind and do all these things for as long as possible? We have to plan for this inevitable. We have to almost assume that we're going to get there someday and be afraid of it a little bit to give us some inspiration to be cognizant and be aware and make sure we don't start too early. Because as it goes with life, things calcify, our minds calcify, our ideas calcify, our habits calcify. And every year that goes on, it gets harder and harder to keep them at bay. So you want to try to focus on awareness and focus on what you're doing and keep that eventual beginning of the end at bay for as long as possible. And I guarantee you very few CEOs think this way. Most CEOs are probably like, oh, it's going to stay here forever. It's going to go on forever. Let's just do more and more and more of this, that. And they lose sight of what got them there in the first place. It's that axiom, what got you here won't get you there. It's so true. Every level in life that we unlock, it's less likely we're going to get to the next level because the things that got us to this point are probably built into our character. And if we want to unlock the next level, get to the next point, it's going to require more effort, more sacrifice, and doing something different. And it's hard for humans to continually do things differently. It just is. Built into our species. These are some ways that you can use to think like Jeff Bezos, to make better decisions in life, to think more long-term, and to avoid the beginning of the end in your life or your organization. I hope you found some value out of these, but more importantly, take your action with something here today. Make a list, set a reminder, put it on your calendar, call that person, send that email, do that thing that you've been putting off, and take action, because action is the only thing that matters in your ultimate success and well-being. You have to take action. Life does not happen to you. You make it happen. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, maybe like, maybe share, whatever, or don't. It's up to you. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about one of these ideas. Maybe pick one and add a question or a quote or something of value to expand on these ideas of thinking like Jeff Bezos, and then how maybe others can learn from your comment. That's the ultimate goal here, is to build better humans, and I need your help to do that. Hey, Colin here. Before I let you go, make sure you go over to colin.coach to hop on the AM5 newsletter so you can get a list of all the shows as well as some of my best content from the week before. You can go to colin.coach to get that now. If you'd like to support the show, you can go over to patreon.com/Colin Stuckert, and you can see some of the membership options, a small monthly donation to help support the work here, and join me in my quest to build better humans using big ideas, as well as promoting health through the Ancestral Mind podcast. I appreciate the support, and if you have any questions or comments, you can send me an email directly to colin@wildfoods.co. This show is also sponsored by Wild Foods Co. Real foods, superfood ingredients from small producers around the world. These are the products I use and trust on a daily basis. You can use code WILDCEO for 12% off your entire order over at wildfoods.co.